Hi everybody, welcome to Book 2, Night 29 of the Orphan's Tales live quarantine reading series. We are almost done. This is the second to the last night. It's crazy, all this time. And after all this time, God, I haven't added it up, but it's got to be almost 100 readings. I couldn't find my glasses, and I couldn't find the shirt I usually wear. So we're going to have to wing this one like it's March and hope that I can read in this very dim light. Good job, me. My son loves this room, and so I suspect it is his fault and that he has hidden my glasses somewhere. Really, it was inevitable. It would have to happen at some point that I couldn't find my glasses. I think that's a rite of passage once you start wearing glasses. Those of you who've been here the whole time will remember that I started wearing glasses during this reading series. It was only now that I realized that I needed them. So, oh well, we'll have to rock it old school style. Everyone in my house is sick. Kid's sick. Husband's sick. I don't know why I'm not sick. I honestly don't. Bastion's been blowing his nose on my face all day for days at a time. So I should be sick, but I'm not. So let's just hope that sticks out. It sticks out. I can't word. It's been a really long day. Holds out. That's the phrase I'm looking for. So yeah, God, it's been such a journey from back when we thought this was going to be 2 weeks. I remember when I thought we probably wouldn't make it through the first book. Maybe we wouldn't make it through half the first book. I was so naive. I was such a child back in March of 2020, the olden times. Every month that goes past is the before times these days. So yeah, thank you so much for sticking with me for so long, for coming with me on this mad jaunt through time and space and pages. I really wish that we hadn't made it through the first book or the second book. I really wish that, I wish that this had all just stopped and we never had any reason to finish it. And I was still arguing with Random House about getting my audio rights back, but it's just not the world we live in. So here we are, close to the end of October, close to the election. Please vote if you haven't voted already. I doubt that anybody watching this is not planning to vote, but if you weren't planning to vote for me, please. Do it as a favor for all these pages that I've read to you. I don't care. Well, that's not true. I do care who you vote for, but you're not required to vote any particular way. Just vote. I care a lot, but just vote. We'll get through to the other side of November somehow. I saw someone posting today about how every month this year has seemed like it ended as soon as it began, and yet the year seems to be taking an eternity, and that is absolutely how I feel. I just want out. But the only way out is through. So let's get started. This is the second to last time I'm going to do this intro, and I'm probably going to screw it up because I can't seem to get it right even once. But we'll try and do it. I haven't voted yet, Laura, because I'm planning to do it on the day. There's never been any voting on Peaks Island. My polling place is literally on my street, so I'm gonna go down. I have a pearl RBG necklace to wear down to the polling place to dissent. So I felt so stupid in 2016. I know a lot of you didn't like Hillary Clinton, but she was my hero from the time I was a small child. Painted my nails red, white, and blue. I'm gonna cry. I was really hopeful. And I felt so stupid with my stupid nails. I remember chewing the nail polish off. I just felt so dumb for being excited. So I'm not excited this year. But I'm not dumb. And I just I just hope that everything that we're doing is enough. I'm not going to do my nails, but I'll still be there. I hope you all will be there too. Okay. Well, as always, this is not an audiobook of The Orphan's Tales. This is a play, a one-woman show. You can find music based on these books at sjtucker.com, and we'll be listening to SJ and Firebird's Child on Wednesday when we finish. At sjtucker.com. You can find copies of them at your local independent bookseller's web portal or their physical bookstores if you're doing that sort of thing. Please do support them rather than the big A, who will be fine after all of this, and many independent stores will not. You can find me on Twitter at Cat Valente. You can find me on Patreon at Cat Valente and subscribe there to continue supporting my work. You can catch up in the archive on YouTube at Cat Valente Live, and there will actually be a big chunky reading put up there this weekend that I did for a convention in Colorado that happened virtually this weekend, and so I will put that up on YouTube, and that will be of a short story called The Bread We Eat in Dreams, alongside all the Orphan's Tale stuff. So, you can catch up there at Cat Valente Live. You can ask me questions after the reading, and I definitely love it when you do. Do try to think of them before I finish so that we don't have any dead air while I awkwardly wait for you to ask something. And if you would like to toss a coin to your witch, if you'd like to support this reading and the rest of my work, you can put a tip in the tip jar at my Instagram profile, my YouTube profile, or my website, which is CatherynneValente.com, or in lieu of that, donation to any blue candidate would be just fine. And I will thank you in person on the next stream if you do. Let's get started. We are, if you have been following along at home all this time, you are a champion, and we are on... Come on, little dog ear. We are on page 477. The tale of the cage of ivory and the cage of iron continued. Kohinoor glared at me over the top of her salamander's wide, mottled head. The Ajans never once answered me. The Duke did not respond to a single missive. When the Kaigal investigated, they discovered the degenerate state of the city and determined that Kashkash would not have let such a rich corpse lie in the desert to be picked over by flies. Though the knowledge came through Camille's well-meant treason, they agreed that we should be allowed to invade. I would find her. I would touch her. The Ash Queen's voice deepened into a canine snarl. And then the old queen died, and an ignorant gutter Cole took her place. And who could care no more for history than a flame cares for a match? It doesn't matter now, I said. She's gone. She was mine, Kohinoor whispered, her grey eyes pleading. How could you take her from me? She wasn't your mother, or mine. It was an accident. The djinn that came from her steps, we were just an accident. You had no right to her. Neither did you. I hung my head, made myself as humble in her sight as I could. Let us go home, Kohinoor. Let us go back to our alcazars and drink coal wine and sing new songs, songs of Ajanab and the stars and the hearts of tigers. She shook her hair back, and her salamander stamped its dry feet. This is her city. I will take it. I will live in her footsteps, held in these red stones as she was held. And I will climb every tower to the sky until I find where you have hidden her, until I can look her in the eye, until I can have my fire, and she her children. I straightened and put my hands on my silver hip baskets. This ignorant gutter Cole thinks you will not. Have you spent so long within that giant's fat knuckles that you have gone mad? This is the decision of the kings, the queens, and the Kaigal, and you can do nothing. tried to smile, as I imagined a queen in full possession of herself would. I imagined it came out a sickly snarl, a kitten hissing at a lion. But I could not let the Ajans burn. I could not. I can make a wish, I said. And here we have an illustration of the salamander and Kohinoor on top. These illustrations are by the legendary Michael Kaluta. The Kaigal roared. You may not. It is not permitted. Nothing you could wish is in our books. Kashkash would never wish for defeat. He would never wish to lose a battle, to lose a city. We will shrivel your tongue in your mouth before you can utter a single word. But if I could, I said sharply, holding up my hands, their orange and black flaring in the faces of the crimson Kaigal salamanders. If I could wish for a thing permitted, if I could wish for something that Kashkash himself would have drawn from his beard with such glee that the heavens would flame in answer, would you let my tongue rest in my mouth? Would you let my wish disturb the air? You cannot wish for the salvation of this place, they answered. Nothing in your wish can touch our will. Nevertheless, if it is in our books, it is permitted. This is the law of the Kaigal. We are accountants, not senators. And then I did smile. Then I could smile. My teeth flared white hot, and I pressed my palms together. My wish is the simplest thing there is. Something Kashkash wished for a man in a little hut so long ago that the trees who witnessed it are dust. I wish, my smile broadened, I wish for my wife. They looked puzzled, their pale beards flushed blue and yellow. Kohinoor rolled her ashen eyes. Camille raised his mangled eyebrow. And there was a peculiar sound in the supply train, a grinding, rumbling, inexorable sound, like the wheels of a catapult grinding against the earth. The salamanders stomped nervously, and Kohinoor struggled with her reins. When they came, I had never seen anything more radiant. The sun caught their brows, their eyes, their shoulders as they rounded the front lines, all my wives alive and walking to me, men of women and women of stone, emerald and ruby and turquoise, tourmaline and hematite and granite, garnet and topaz and jasper, diamond and brass, silver and quartz, copper and malachite and carnelian, so many red carnelian faces glittering in the morning. They came to me one by one and kissed my cheeks, and by the time the 50th of them came, and the 100th, and more, I was weeping, my cheeks wet with flame. They kissed me and took their places along the wall, as I asked them to, a fabulous skirt for Simeon, for his poor bleeding chest, for his poor city. The simplest thing there is, I said. They will not let you in. After all, a wife's love is absolute, eternal, untouchable as breath. Come near them, and they will smother your fires in stone. Kohinoor looked at me, her expression curiously like a child's, hurt and uncomprehending. She was my mother. I wanted only to touch her, she whispered. You could not possibly understand. I searched my vaults for you, for your family, for grass or wind or water or stone. You are not there. You are nothing and no one. You drifted into Kosh like a scrap of trash, and it is only chance that made you queen. You are smoke and nothing more. So are we all, sister. The hands of my wives tightened on mine. I would like to say the jinn dispersed before the day was out, that the army of kings and queens was sent to their well-curtained homes and their many-pronged crowns. But it was weeks before they determined that my wives would not move, that the Kaigal would find no precedent for repeal. They went slowly, they went cursing. And on the day when the fields of Ajana were empty of all and dry, Simeon opened his hands entirely, and my jeweled wives were led inside, hesitant as infants, reaching for the folk of the carnival, to touch them and know their names. I let them go. I let them wander. They were not truly mine. They clung to me at first as kits will cling to a vixen, but soon enough they took their names and tried their first stumbling dances, and asked after lovely fawns and chorus boys that they had seen. When they found Orphea's courtyard, they were as upset as a flock of squabbling geese. They put their fingers to the eyes of the statues. They shook their stone shoulders, trying to wake them. They called out to the sandstone figures. They begged them to answer, begged them to breathe. They wept and trembled to see these mirror siblings. They did not understand. I tried to calm them. But hundreds of stone folk who think they stand in a field of slaughter are not easily calmed. I held the head of an inconsolable woman of lapis on my lap, and a young man of obsidian lay sickened at my feet. From behind a sandstone bust of a boy with bees' wings, a soft voice sounded. "Please," it whirred, "listen to me." The stone wives looked up, eyes wet with sparkling mica-flecked tears. And before them stood Hour, her head bent, her clock heart clicking, her armor hands clasped like a girl who has forgotten her lesson. "These are not like us," she said. "And if you will listen, I will help you to grow up. I will tell you all you need to know of living." They gathered close round her, many-colored eyes, hopeful and curious. They, too, folded their hands politely and waited. The tall, gleaming woman stood very still. "Once upon a time," said Hour, "there was a maiden who lived in a castle." Sorry, the pages are stuck. 1,000 pages before one stuck. The tale of the waste continued. I lived in Ajanab as well as a goose in its flock, but it was no more than a year, I think, before the Kaigal came. They did not bring an army. They did not bring their books. They brought a cage. Not because I had wished for my wives. They could say nothing on that score. But because I had abandoned my Alcazar and left Kosh without one of her queens. The djinn laughed as bitterly as a veteran. Dereliction of duty. They poured out their smoke over me, white and rolling, and when it cleared, a cage was in its place. It is not iron. It is made of djinn bones, and I can no more melt them than I can breathe at the bottom of the sea. I cannot slip through the bars. They keep me here in the wasteland. And until you, there has been but one other visitor to my prison of bone and sand and sage. The leopard and her mistress waited with the patience of stones. She came when I had been here through a full summer, and my heart was as dry as cedar bark. Kohinoor without her salamander, a pillar of smoke and ash in the desert. She came near to my cage, though not too near. "I am sorry they decided this," she said, "but it will not be long. You are old now. You will not last. Nor will I. Ash is even older than flame." We played the scene that angry, soured old women will play. We taunted, we sneered, we threatened. It hardly matters, really. She stood there a long time when the words were done, silent, staring. "Why did you come?" I asked. "She was mine." Kohinoor sighed, as though she no longer believed it herself. "Who will fill me with flame now?" I understood. I was not queen long, but I understood. Sisters, even such motley sisters as we, do understand some simple things. The simplest things there are. I extended a long hand from my cage, and she walked into my fingers, into her smoke, into her throat. Into her eyes I reached, and the flame of my palms and my wrists and my fingertips passed into her, lighting the darkness of her bones to a radiant gold. Red flames opening like funeral flowers in the base of her belly, streaming from her navel. The roots of her hair glowed incandescent, and in the desert the ash queen burned. she breathed. Yes. She wept then, real tears, liquid fire dripping to scald the earth. And then her body fell into ash, true ash, and her last breath scorched the wind. Thank you, said the leopard, sitting at attention. We are grateful to hear such things, though we are disturbed, rather, I am disturbed on behalf of my mistress. Indeed, the veiled woman wrung her hands and looked imploringly at her cat with great red eyes. Scald reeled in a length of her hair and obscured her face for a moment, overcome by the memory of the old queen. Why? She said from behind her screen. It is my tale. It was not meant to disquiet you. It is nothing but a story told by a devil caught in a cage. Rend frowned and pawed the thirsty ground. She purred softly. That is not entirely true. The tale of the leprous and the leopard. In Urim, every window is hung with black. This is not so monotonous as it might seem. Shades of black differ as greatly from one to the other as oxblood and cobalt. In our long black banners are infinite designs, spirals and mandalas of ghostly and intricate design. Within tall citadels, the people of Urim contemplate these banners, and it calms them. For Urim is a city of plague. It is a hopeless place, and those who are hopeless are its priests and its citizens. Lepers and other ailments of as many varieties as spices in Ajanab, about 1,000 gather there, treat one another as they can, salve one another as they may, and die in each other's arms. The Wildflower Field surrounded in a wide green rose circle like the window of a church, where cures of all fashions are bred and planted and culled. Some of them taste sweet as apples, some bitter as banyan root. Most of them do nothing. But we hope. We always hope. In their ailments, Urimites are brothers, and no city is so full of gentle, exhausted, beneficent folk. They tore out my mistress's tongue when we came, and chained me to her while she lay broken on their streets. But I get ahead of myself. It is a cat's habit. We bound and leap the tail far behind, when we should hold it between our paws and worry it to the bone. I shall pierce it with 2 claws. She found me in the grasslands, and I was cold and grey as slush snow. Do you know how a leopard is born? We are mules, soft-nosed and long-tailed. My mother was a lion, my father was a pard of many colours. His pelt was like a war flag. On a day of hunting he found her, her muzzle bloody with antelope, and against the custom of both feline tribes, they coupled in the long glare of the screaming sun. They went their ways as cats will do, and my mother gave birth to 1 cub, dead as an antelope, as all leopards are born. Our mothers must breathe into our snouts, our fathers roar into them, or we will take no life. But a new lion with a mane of tangled gold had padded into my mother's pride and did not care for cubs which were not his own, so she left me in the salt bush, unbreathed, unroared. And that was how my mistress found me. Little grey paws curled up toward the sun like old mushrooms, spots like specks of mold, a tongue that never tasted light nor meat. Even in her extremity, the woman I came to know as Ruin knelt by that bedraggled infant cat, fur still stiff with birth water, and without knowing what she did, looked closely at my half-lidded eyes and breathed into my spotted face. And I woke. I saw her. She was not a lion nor a pard. Her veils were parted to show her face, her cheeks flushed, her eyes scarlet as the inside of a deer, her skin peeling from her like paper, layer after layer, like pages falling out of a book. I gripped her fingers with my paw and pierced her skin in my eagerness, but drew no blood. "You cannot hurt me, little one," she said, her voice as rough as a tongue. "And as you are quite yellow and black, and neither peeling to pieces nor turned to stone, I think, perhaps, I cannot hurt you." The Tale of the Good Daughter. I had a name before I died. I know I did. I can taste it on my tongue like the ghost of sugar. But I cannot remember it. Ruin I became, and ruin I am. My father said I was an angel, seraphic, holy as myrrh. It was never so, but I tried so hard. I tried for his sake. But ruin is the whole of me. Our house was full of bundled spices, yarrow and cinnamon and paprika, bright red turmeric flowers bunched by the windows. My father wore red robes and taught me to pour out the freezing water into our carnelian font and put wild celery flowers in my hair, so pungent in their scent my eyes itched. Everything in our world was red. Red, my father said, was the color of heaven, the color of stars falling. Red was the color of piety, and so he swathed my crib in it, and my body when I rose from that crib. I knew nothing that was not red. Is it surprising, then, that I kept to red things in the house of red spices? Is this piety, to never step outside the shade of your bedclothes? I bathed in the frozen font each day, and I learned, after a very long while of gritted teeth and chattering, to love the blue feeling of its splash on my skin, which was not red, was nothing like red. Under my bed I collected green things, grass, jade, green silk, clover. White things, chalk, alabaster, dust, daisies. Blue things, lapis, blue crinoline, scraps of paper from the indigo dyers' shops. Ice. The ice always melted, but I kept it in vials of crystal, and in some lights these too were blue. I would take these things and hold them to my chest in the night and dream about water, which was warm as a heart. And then the fields began to die. I did not understand why. I was so young, innocent of everything outside our house. I could not have even matched my stockings if everything I owned had not been red. But I watched them wither and die from the tower windows, curtained in scarlet, and I wanted to see the green and the white and the blue and the gold and the violet of them before they were gone. I wanted to lie down in everything not red and feel them crawling over me as they rushed to escape from this world. I went from my father's door with prayers weighing my wrists. I pulled the earth over me like a hood. I waited. Roots nosed my elbows, the hollows of my knees, and something deep in me hardened into stone. It sat in me, spreading and chewing, and I closed my eyes in the earth. I saw no red, but black. It hurt so much. That is what I remember. The shoes were wedged onto my feet, and in the place within me which had turned to stone, the place which was pumice and sandstone wrenched in anguish. My skin softened, blood flowed back into flesh, dragging knives behind it. On my red bier my limbs became heavy, prickling like a forgotten finger. I could not even groan for the sear of it. Even when I woke and stood over my father, tired and empty of piety, the blood in me bellowed. Enraged that it was no longer stone, not black, that it was forced into red once more. Every step in my gnarled, twisted cinnamon shoes was filled with the bright and piercing cries of my blood, blood which remembered being stone, which longed to be stone again. And the shoes, through the howling of my blood, whispered. They whispered of the light in the far corners of the city. They whispered that there would be no pain if only I could move fast enough on my feet. If only I could dance, if only the world could whirl around me, swift enough to carry any stone away. The shoes lied. I danced every night. And I went to no services, held no red candle until my father dragged me to the altars and tied my ankles to them under my red skirts. I danced endlessly, and every step, every whirl screamed. As I danced, the stone left me, scouring me empty as it went, but it did go. My hair became long and bright again, my cheeks red, my legs nimble. And on one night, of all nights, when there was almost no pain left, only the nagging, grinding ache of my belly where the stone had begun, I lost my shoes. I did not mean to lose them. Though they lied and chose their own path, they were good and lovely shoes. I did not feel them when they fell from my heels. I did not go back, searching through the brush and the ruin of courtly orchids trampled by revelers to find them. Some other girl could have them now, I thought. I was well. But as I lay in my red blankets, in my bed so like a bier, the thing in me which had turned to stone as I lay in the earth pricked once more and hardened just a little, like a fist clenching. My father told me it was nothing. Do not think on it, he said, and it will go away just as it did before. Before, I mumbled, I had my shoes, red and dusty. Perhaps, he said, stern as stone, you should take up your ablutions again. Perhaps this is your punishment for such unseemly things as you did in the Duke's old palace. I told you, father, I only danced. I will search the city for the sacred shoe that fits your foot, he announced, and though I protested, he turned his back and called his heralds. But I did as he said, fearful of the hard thing in me like a pit in a plum. I tried to scrub it away in clear, hard morning water, frantic to melt it back into blood. My father saw this with pleasure, and held up my hair while I shivered. I held the red candle at the altar, and after a time he removed my stays. In the evening he rubbed red spices onto my belly and mixed them with his tears. The spices burned, left blisters, trickled from my stomach to the linens. And all the while, every shoemaker in Agenab, which was certainly fewer shoemakers than there once had been, came to the house of red spices. They brought their finest heels and laces of the twisted roots of tamarisk with rosettes of aloe, scraggle-toed banyan shoes, cedar and pomegranate wood, date palm and sandalwood, camphor and wet ginger-shrouded shoes that burned my soles. They brought delicate black vanilla bean shoes and fragrant maidy shoes, shoes of nutmeg seeds and shoes of cardamom pods, white as pearls. They even brought cinnamon shoes, dusty as my own, but none of those helped, and still my stomach hardened, and my skin began to peel. Like onion skin it fell from me. The stone wished to come out, and I wished it to wither. I woke in the morning, my flesh sloughed off in the night, the skin beneath new and raw. My father exclaimed, I was healed. I must be healed. Such a thing was a miracle of the candle in the altar. My skin lay around me, translucent and dead. But as the days went on, the skin beneath peeled too, and beneath it was not new skin, red and bright, but more peeling, thin and terrible, like plum rind sliced away, ruined. My father sent to the Duke's old palace for every set of cast-off shoes, for every maid that danced, but they were gone. Vanished, shredded to flavor some beauty's tea, or danced to pieces on a floor I knew as well as my bed. And still, my skin peeled. There seemed to be no end of me, or the peeling, and my belly was hard and cold, waiting to emerge. The tale of the leprous and the leopard continued. One day, my feet bare amongst a dozen pairs of shoes, I said to my father, this must stop. I am dead, father. I am dead, and you seek to cure it, but there is no cure here. I shall go to Urim, where all cures reside on shelves of obsidian and pearl. I shall go to the pale white sea, which washes the hem of Urim with all the salt of the world. The dead will walk in the desert. Our place is not in the city. And so I came, little cat, peeling and shedding my skin like a snake. I wrapped myself in black so that I would not frighten anyone, and so that the gate of Urim would know me as a pestilent. The stone in me is so heavy now. Anything I touch hardens. Anyone I touch becomes art, becomes sculpture. Ruin laughed wryly. Perhaps I have found my calling. You pierce my skin. You see, I have no blood left but stone, and yet you are soft and sweet and spotted as ever. I coughed, a tiny kitten's cough. You breathed into me. I am not a leopard. I am not alive. My mother did not give me her breath. You did, a corpse walking wide. Thus I think I am dead still, dead as I was born, as dead as you. We are dead together. How could you harm me? Do you believe in Urim there is salve for you? Ruin regarded me calmly, her eyes red and serene. No. But we always hope. I nuzzled shyly into her palm. Take me with you. I have your breath. I am your leopard. You cannot leave me. You must name me and love me and lick my fur into behaving itself. It is very necessary. She laughed. You are not bothered by my eyes, by the molt of my skin. How could I be? You're the first woman I've ever seen. And so it was that we went together, and my legs that grew very long, gold and black and wiry. I loved my mistress, and once, just once, when our fire was very low and she looked out across the empty plains between Ajarab and Urim, I put my unruly head in her lap, and she licked my fur to shiny. We came to Urim in the night, and all things in the city were black. It was a city mourning itself. How dark were its vestments. We entered. There was no sentry. Urim is not often visited. All things slept, and we sat at the center of the city, waiting for dawn on the lip of a great memorial. Pure white man resting on a bier, his face beatific. On the lips of this slab was carved, "Forgive us, for we were in need." And we have one of the banners of Urim here. Against this nameless man and his nameless bed we huddled. I wrapped my tail round his haunches, and the sky wheeled over our heads. Some time before sunrise, a strange creature came walking from a distant road, its footsteps scraping the pale cobbles. It was a woman, all of wicker, of brambles and stick, of hazel and red osier, green and pliant willow. It moved softly and gracefully for all that, and bowed low to us. "This is an uncomfortable place to sleep," she said, her voice hard like branches snapping. "Perhaps it brings you hope, however." Her eyes were sappy blossom nubs, rose-colored and wet. Ruin stirred and adjusted her veils quickly, covering her exposed cheek. "We await the day, and the Urimites, to tell us how to live in this place. We are in need." "So are we all," answered the wicker white. "But he," the woman indicated the statue, "is the answer to need." And we will pick up there on Wednesday night and finish our tale. Sorry to get all teary there for a minute. I'd forgotten what Urim is and that we all live in it. No. God, in some ways it seems like there is a destiny at work here. That maybe there was no audiobook for all those years so that I could read it while we were all so stuck. Clearly I'm in my feels tonight. Catherynne, you have a question? Yes. While Catherine's typing her question, obviously we're getting some connections here to the previous tales. I thought of something as I was reading that I remembered, but now I've forgotten it again. I'm sorry. It's been, as I said, a very long day. now that I've had a child, how does the recurring theme of childbearing strike you? It's really odd. It really is. Because as I've said a couple of times, I was adamantly child-free when I wrote these books. I was determined that I would never have children. I didn't want them, and I was going to have dogs forever. Still have dogs, but now it just seems like, girl, you need to get over like the birds and babies thing, because it's weird. But certainly it is next week next week you'll all see how all of the repeated mother and child and father and child themes sort of come together, and it is very much the core theme of this book. But I think that what it comes from, not to psychoanalyze myself, is that, I didn't get enough love as a child. My childhood was one of kind of repeated abandonments, and so what did I do? The first time I got a professional pen and a big canvas. I wrote a story about over and over and over about parents and their children. Some bad, but most, if you look at them, most are people who love their children and try their best, which is such a thing that so many people take for granted, and I never had. And so I wrote all these. Sorry, I'm really in it tonight. I wrote all these parents and children that were together and loved each other, and or at least wanted to be. So I think that's why there's all the babies, all those little babies and mothers in this book. I was just such a very lonely child. In a way that my child never will be lonely. I remember when I was, I'm so sorry guys, I don't know what has gotten into me tonight. I remember when I was pregnant, I would put my hand on my stomach and say, I don't know who you're going to be, but I know that you will never not have enough love. And he never has and never will. I don't know what is wrong with me tonight. I'm very sorry. But that's what the Orphan's Tales is. Making that world for a child before I ever had one of my own. Has reading these books these last few months affected my writing process at all? No, not really. Honestly, it's so long ago that I wrote these that I don't really think of it that way. I don't think of it in the sense of, oh, what can I do differently? It's passed so far beyond revision at this point that I don't. It hasn't really affected my process. Whenever I read something older of mine, I always want to go back and edit it, but you can't. That's sort of the dark magic of publication. It's written in stone, so to speak. It is what it is, and will never be other than that. So it's as though someone else wrote it because someone else did write it. The girl who wrote this hadn't even met the people who are so important to my life now. Hadn't even met a number of people who became so important to my life and now are no longer in my life. That's how long ago it was. It's just cycles and cycles. So it really was another person. It was a girl for whom the trauma of that loneliness was very fresh. I was only 22 when I started writing this. I was barely not a child. So it is. As I've said a number of times, I remember virtually nothing of what's in this book. So it's like reading somebody else's book in a very real way. And then there'll be a moment when I'm reading where I'll just flash on something I was thinking about or bent on explicating while I was writing it. But they're only flashes. As one of my favorite television shows says, the rest is confetti. It all just passes. Time passes and new books get written. Things move. through the wheel, and the grist is made, and new breads and new loaves, and we've pushed this metaphor along past where it's logical. Mandy said, it's not nearly the same, but you are so beloved now by so many. It's such a sweet thing to say, and I'm going to cry on Wednesday, 100%. I've never even glanced at the end of this book without crying. So I will try to hold it together like a good professional authoress, but it won't work. I will definitely cry. And I know that I realized as I was writing the end of this book, I do remember this, how much the arc of the Orphan's Tales was the arc of my life at the time. Because I started writing this book when I was, not only did I have a lonely childhood, I had a lonely early adulthood. I wrote these books mostly when I was in Japan and completely by myself and with no one in the world. We didn't even, like, cell phones technology was so comparatively rudimentary that I never even talked to anyone except, through LiveJournal. And I was very much the girl in the garden. If there's anybody in this book, I am the girl in the garden. And the arc of this book took me all the way through coming back and meeting SJ, meeting the man who became my husband, meeting all of these people who are still my very dear friends, until there's a carnival at the end. So it's a heavy feeling book. Mandy said, I just finished listening to the end of the final Fairyland book again and weeping over it. Was little girl at the end of that book, Rebecca, named for someone in real life? And at the end of the last Fairyland book, yeah, it is. I wonder, I mean, there's 16 people watching. Becca, are you watching? Yeah, it's named for a girl named Becca Frankel, who I met when I was touring for the first Fairyland book, and she was 13 at the time. And she was a very lonely little girl, just like me. And we became friends, and we kept up, and I've, been a bit of a mentor, and I gave the commencement speech at her high school. She's in college now, and we talk quite a bit. And it has been one of the lovely relationships that came out of Fairyland. And I would love to tell you more about that story, but I feel like it's not quite mine to tell because, the trauma of her childhood is hers to tell. But it is named after a very beautiful little girl who grew into a beautiful young woman that I was just absolutely moved by when I met her. You can't give kids hugs when you're at school visits, so that's not allowed. And she came to my bookstore reading after hours, in the evening. And SJ was there, so we'd had one of our shows. And she came up afterwards, and I was like, well, now I can hug you. If you want a hug, I can hug you now. And I hugged her, and I said, listen, look around. Look around at all these people, all these beautiful people in all their beautiful clothes. I was just like you, and look at the world I made. And you can make a world too. You just try and make a better world than you got. And so I gave her a little present at the end of the series. God, Kat, stop crying, you big softie. So yes, I played Greenwind for somebody. So it is named for her. I wanted to tell you about the cat thing. I remember what I wanted to say. So, Byron, Lord Byron, that everybody has done such lovely things for recently. So many people don't know. If you get a cat from a breeder, they have a name before you meet them. Well, Byron had two. His name was Aries when I got him. But that wasn't the name he was born with. He was born of a little litter of 3 cats that were named Ember, Kindling, and Ash. His name was Ash, just like my Jins. And so he was very, very sick when he was a kitten, and they thought he wasn't going to make it. And so they changed his name to Aries because they thought Ash was too deathly for him, that if they gave him a new name, it would be a magic spell and he would be able to fight. So they gave him the name Aries, and I saw those names and I knew he was meant to be my cat. So he came home with me, and he was so sick. If you actually look at him, his fur changed color. The sickness changed his fur. And so he's got this red and gray under his black, from where the illness that he had, like leached the color out of his fur. He's a very magical cat. He was born a king, born a king of the gym. So that's what I wanted to tell you guys. He's going in for a leukemia test on Tuesday, so I will let you all know how that comes out. Hopefully not, because if that's negative, then all the other possibilities are manageable, or long-term manageable. But yeah, so that's the trivia for the night. I'm going to sign off before I blubber more at you. Thank you all so much for watching. Let me do my little outro. As always, this is not an audiobook of The Orphan's Tales. It is a play. You can find music based on these books at sjtucker.com. You can find copies of them at your local independent bookseller. If you would like to support mine, it's printbookstore.com. You can find me on Twitter at Cat Valente. You can subscribe to my Patreon at Cat Valente. This will be a good week for that. All of the end of the month rewards are just about to go up. You can catch up in the archive at Cat Valente Live. And if you are so moved and would like to toss a coin to your witchy author, there is a tip jar on my Instagram profile, my YouTube profile, and my website, which is CatherynneValente.com. Thank you all so much. Thank you for putting up with my ridiculous, unprofessional blubbering. And I will see you all for the final night of The Orphan's Tales on Wednesday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Same fairy tale time, same fairy tale channel. Goodbye, everyone.